This is Cat with Monocle. Thanks for tuning in for today's podcast, where we just came out of the screening for Beetlejuice, the sequel to the 1988 release of Beetlejuice. I just said that 3 times, didn't I? Oh, it doesn't come. Oh, it doesn't come.
I'm checking over my shoulders.
See that? Okay, we're good. All right. So, Beetlejuice, like I said, is a sequel to the 1988 release. Takes place decades after the movie, where Lydia, she's now an adult and has a family. Her daughter Astrid, who plays by Jenna Ortega, better known as Wednesday, from the Addams Family Netflix, is not really too keen on how popular her mom is with her latest
paranormal,
her
television show.
Yep, that she can see ghosts and talk to ghosts, and yeah, she gets made fun of at her school, so she's pretty embarrassed and does not want to talk to her mom, and actually probably avoids her like a plague. But in this film, she's going to have to learn how to accept what her mom can do and what she can see, because things get a little messy, a little hairy in this film for Lydia's family. In the beginning of the film, Lydia gets a call from her mother-in-law, Delia, where there's a death in the family.
Delia.
Delia. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
My bad. Delia. So there's the death in the family. So Lydia, Astrid, and Lydia's boyfriend in this film, they take a trip back to the hometown of Winter River, and when they get there, things start to go ups and downs, from family issues to all their normal activities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lydia's daughter, Astrid, has a lot of anger in her due to her own dad's passing when she was young. And that, coupled with the fact that she is super embarrassed by her mom's crazy, or what she thinks is crazy, seeing and talking to the dead, makes it so that she's just defiant and wants nothing to do with the family, pretty much.
Right. And, and those who watched the 1988 film, they remember how, was her name Delia? Delia. Oh my goodness. I am bad at names. How she's pretty much an artistic person. So she's way out there in her sculptures and her paintings. So she still continues that, and she's pretty famous in this film. So
yeah, she's if you know anything about Delia, she is played by Catherine O'Hara. Now, many of you may know her from many different places, but one of the most popular and relatively recent would be Schitt's Creek, where she's Moira, if I'm saying that name right, where she can just do the voices. So one of those voices is Delia. And she definitely brings that exuberance to the screen, just like she did back in 1988. And instead of being kind of a quack of sorts, she actually is successful at what she's doing. And it's still kind of out there, but it works for what it is.
She does it throughout the film, which is even better. But trying to avoid any spoilers, she plays a good character in that film. Other returning casts, such as Michael Keaton, who plays Beetlejuice once more. Mm-hmm. does another good job with it as Beetlejuice. With the satire and whatnot.
He does. It's almost identical to what he did in the original. And the interesting thing, I watched the movie earlier today just so I could have it fresh in my mind to be able to talk about it this evening. But I was looking at the detail in the makeup and the lines in his face. And I was like, okay, it doesn't matter how much he's aged because that'll only make the character look even better because the decomposing body would.
So what I'm hearing is he can play this role until he's around 90.
Oh, yeah, and beyond. The afterlife. But yeah, Michael Keaton, I think they did a great job. The makeup was pretty much identical to what it was before, even the little blotches on the side of his face and down his neck. I think that he did a good job. It was exactly what I would have expected from Michael Keaton for this. Same thing for Catherine O'Hara, who played Delia. I think she did a great job with same character, spot on.
Yep. And I think Lydia she's grown up, so she can't really use that teenager self like she did in the 88 film. So she's trying to be an adult, trying to be a parent, and she's struggling. Trying to balance as a mother and her profession, and then in between, you got Beetlejuice and how that's been happening.
And she's also dating someone as well during the film, but also because she has dealt with this, the ability to see and speak to dead people for so long, you can imagine the mental health issues that might come with that because you don't have control over when that happens. And it created, I guess, kind of some anxiety for her.
And she was seeing some, it was interesting, though, is that when she sees somebody wearing stripes that was in public, she started having, these flashbacks of just flashes of just seeing Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice in that same character, whoever. So if some stranger walking by with stripes, she sees Beetlejuice right there, even though he's not. You can tell it's eating her up. Yeah,
it was traumatic for her to have to go through that experience about this demon, trying to terrorize her family. As a child, I guess I never interpreted it that way, but in this film, she directly said it just like that.
Yeah.
So, that's what it was. If this were, real life, but
yep. And so that's what's going on in the living world, and then in the afterlife. Last time we saw Beetlejuice, he was waiting in line and his head shrunk and everything. They don't really portray what happens right after that. The next thing you know, he's pretty much just overlooking a department in the afterlife.
He's kind of in charge.
Yeah, which is kind of scary. I'm not sure how that happened, but
in charge of Bob.
Yeah.
Bob is that one of those guys that with the shrunken heads. Apparently, there's a bunch of them. They're all dressed very similar, but they have different name tags, and one of them is Bob.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, Bob is great.
So apparently, Beetlejuice has been behaving for the most part in the afterlife. He's just.
And that's the thing, is that other things are happening. So Danny DeVito, he makes an appearance in this film as the janitor, and he plays a pretty good part as the janitor. But something happens in there.
Yeah, he wasn't advertised. That was a surprise one that no one was advertising. So, but the movie's out now, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, he does a brief. I would consider it more of a cameo kind of thing. It was super brief, but
was he in the 88 film?
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
No, definitely not. I would have remembered that. That would have been pretty cool. But it was really cool because Danny DeVito was such a big name in the 80s and 90s that having him make an appearance, especially after losing some of the main characters, losing Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis. They did not return. And it was interesting that how they transitioned that one, saying that Lydia said that they found a loophole, so they were able to
continue on with their lives in the afterlife.
Yeah, like pass on or whatever it was.
No, they didn't get into much detail. It was just a quick turn of the page. Now we're moving on to today's issues.
Exactly. So they take a nod at some of the things, but one of the characters I was surprised was not brought back was Jeffrey Jones, which plays Lydia's dad, Charles. So now he technically was there, but he wasn't. He is never directly, as a human being in the living world, shown. But they do a slight story, claymation, showing him, and his character, spoiler alert right here, big one, he is the one that dies in the movie.
Which
to bring
everybody back into the Winter River for the funeral.
Yeah, brought the family together for the funeral.
Yep.
So, but his, the way that he died made it so you did not see his face.
Yep.
So, interestingly, like, I don't know the reason they did not bring him back. I'm guessing, I did a little footwork on this one, and because I was really surprised at that, because I was like, well, Catherine O'Hara came back, Delia, so why wouldn't the dad?
Right.
But with this being targeted at
PG-13.
Kids and adults, I found that Mr. Jeffrey Jones got into some trouble back in the early 2000s, that in such a way that makes it so that probably directors don't want to bring him back for a children's movie. So we'll just leave it at that, and if that's something you want to do some more footwork on, it's an easy search on the internet. So, but overall, I was a little bit bummed out that they didn't bring Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis back. I thought that could have been really fun.
It could have been. I don't know the reasons why. Maybe they just denied it to money. It's hard to say. Maybe information would come out later on, but at the very least, Michael Keaton's back.
Yeah, I mean, if Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin are listening, we'd love to have an interview with you. Find out why you didn't come back. Did you choose not to, or were you not asked to?
Right.
I'd really like to know the answers to that, so feel free to reach out.
No, but the way that the movie kind of went on, I like the intro on how it was like the logo movie pops up, and then you got the music coming on, and then just this is more of a graphic. I'm big into like the motion graphics and the artistic stuff. So to see those retro the same logos that they used in the 1988 film was the first thing in that show, which is...
Oh, was it? I didn't realize it. I just thought it was black and white, which I was like, oh, this is cool looking.
No, when you were watching the 1988 film, the very beginning, I saw the logo. I forgot the name of the industry, but I recognized the logo. It is the same logo that they use, same animation. It's like they never changed it.
I know you mentioned the font.
Yes,
but
the font.
Okay.
It's the Times or the New Roman, all in caps. It really reminded me of the 80s, late 80s style. Ghostbusters used it. Tim Burton used it. It's been used for that kind of era, which is awesome. So it's got that little nice glow effect. Then it gets into the neighborhood. And, as it goes through, you can tell like, oh, there's things moving around. But then you can slowly start seeing the artificial turf and the little plastic cows, and you're getting into the more of the play. It's not like the playoffs, but you know what I'm saying. It's the same.
Yeah, the what is it? The not diagram, but the setup that he had of the town. It was really interesting in that opening scene when they were clearly using a drone at one point for a town.
They were.
But then they transitioned back and forth in it. maybe it was all, maybe I'm reading into this, but maybe it was symbolic
It could have been.
of the intertwining of the two.
It could very well be. It's maybe they get the more deeper they got into the town, it started to transition into that, that excuse me, that playful layout, and then it went into the house, the famous houses, and got into the window, and then there's Lydia, and then you get into the transition of her show called Ghost House, and then it goes from there. The movie continues on from there.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought the beginning how they introduced that was, ooh, this is gonna be exciting.
Yeah,
Like,
it was.
ooh,
It
this is
had
nice.
it had so much overlap to the original.
It surely did.
Yeah, I like that part,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that it was really fun at the funeral. Yep, I said fun at the funeral when they did the song.
Nope. The famous song at the end of the '88 film, as many of you would probably remember, that was sang during the funeral. Which was, it's like, okay, yeah, we'll take it. But the overall how the story, like, there wasn't just, Beetlejuice was in it, obviously, name of the movie, but there was more things happening in the film. There was more than just, because in the '88 film, it was focused on, issues with somebody living, in the house and being
Trying to
haunted
get them
and
out of the house.
This seems to be a little bit more of a more problematic not just in the household but outside.
That's a really good point because there are different layers. You learn some of Beetlejuice's history and background, that he was married previously.
Yes.
And his wife
yes.
is out to get him.
Yep.
But then there's also the additional layers of Astrid having the conflict with her mom, not to mention Astrid having a potential love interest.
Yep, in the same town.
First love interest.
Yep.
And there's the additional layers of Lydia and her being a paranormal talk show host person, where she also is dating someone and has this conflict between, loving the person, but also, are they the greatest for her?
No, but he kind of persuaded her,
yeah, it was so romantic.
Yeah.
To be proposed to on the day of her dad's funeral.
Yeah, that was,
that was...
Put her on the spot, why don't you?
Sarcasm. So, yeah. He was a piece of work. He was played by... Which person was he?
I believe it's Justin.
Justin Thoreau?
Yeah.
So Rory was the name of the character. So yeah, he was an interesting character. I didn't find him to be that big of a character. He was just kind of, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Like, he did exactly what he was supposed to. You were supposed to not like him, and you could see right through his crap. Yeah. And he did a good job at making me not like him.
No, and Astrid saw that coming, many miles away.
Yeah, Lydia didn't, though. She struggled.
She was in a position where she was traumatized, and he was there to pretty much pounce on the opportunity to try to, build her up and fall in love with him.
Yeah, he was just looking. He was just looking to profit off of her success.
That's what it started to seem like. You could tell that was what it is, and even Astrid saw that.
Mm-hmm. And he admitted it towards the end.
Yeah, and going through this, the actors who were in this film, William Dafoe, I was surprised he made an appearance. And those who remember who William is, he played as the villain as the Green Goblin in Spider-Man. And those who are big anime fans will recognize him as the Shinigami in Death Note on the Netflix series. And
interesting.
Really good actor.
Are you talking about the live action?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he's a great actor. And
I've never. Well, I mean, usually the characters that he plays are not the best guys, so I guess
no. But he played it interesting as more of a. His name is in this movie is Wolf Jackson. He's a '80s actor, but in the Afterlife, he's a cop.
No, he's an actor.
He's an actor.
He's acting as a cop.
But he's playing. But that's his role in the Afterlife. He is a cop. But
right, but he's acting like one. But
right.
it's just
weird. There's a lot of jabs to it, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's silly. It kind of goes back and forth.
Well, the way, like, how he dies, it's kind of pretty funny on how that happened. But yeah.
Tragedy is funny?
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, he explained, it's like, yeah, I didn't think this was going to happen. I didn't think this was real. It's like, yeah, but it wasn't. So he's kind of full of himself, but he's, he tries to be, the good cop, bad cop at times too. Like he tries to, if you remember Bob, who we explained earlier, and tries to try to be a bad cop towards Bob. That was pretty funny. You remember that part? We're trying to find out where Beetlejuice is.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, he was just being himself in that case.
No, he was being an actor, but he was scaring Bob. He was sweating.
I mean, technically, Bob was just really anxious to begin with.
He can't talk because his mouth's sewed.
Well, not only that, but he's dressed up like Beetlejuice, even though he has a small head. As a decoy, so that his wife.
His ex, or his, I'm going to call him his
wife.
Ex.
No,
wife.
Wife. I mean, they were married when he died and she died, and so technically they're still married. But I mean, does that end the marriage? I don't know.
I thought it was ex throughout the time, but regardless, though,
ex-wife. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, DeVito did a good job bringing her back. I'll tell you that. But
DeVito.
Danny DeVito.
Bringing her back? Oh, but on accident.
By accident.
The janitor. He messed up. Oops.
But the thing that I've noticed through the film, like we mentioned, there was a lot of layers, a lot of things happening. It's not just in, a enclosed circle like it was in the first film. It was more spread out. And so I think people who really hang on to that 1988 film, the original Beetlejuice film, I think they're going to have a little bit of a hard time to grasp that there's a lot of back and forth and things, and I think that's what makes it a little different and a little bit more, I don't know, like in today's movies they kind of do this. It just seems to be more common. You see, they have to do this. And the film's like... What
do you mean back and forth?
Well, they go back and forth between things. So, for example, what's going on in the Afterlife with Beetlejuice.
Oh, you mean the storylines
right, and then
for different characters.
Correct. There's just so many layers. There's so many things happening. Yes, they all start coming together one bit at a time. And it's comparing to the original runtime, it's about 11 more minutes longer.
Okay, so not significant.
But
let's pause for a second. Before you talk about it, what is your initial review? Right off.
I'm thinking a little bit. I was thinking of 4.25.
4.25. Okay, yes. And I put it at probably around a 4.
Mm-hmm.
So continue with what you were saying. And we can, process all that and talk about that at the end again.
Mm-hmm.
But what were your thoughts on the music?
I thought the music was good. They did bring back the music from the 80s, from the original film, and they did music from the 80s as well. I think the music that Beetlejuice was on the guitar playing, and he's vocalizing.
Being romantically creepy. That I was laughing so hard at because he was so serious and so romantic towards Lydia, and he was good at it, but it was super creepy. So, and he did that a couple times, which was great. Mm-hmm. I really like that, especially when he was using the guitar there. That was good.
Yeah. Now, the further got into it, and then they took that same, that vocalizing, like, we're going to play more music from the 80s, and we're going to have each character say parts, just like, remember the 80s where they did that song, and they were on the table, and they each song. They used that, towards the, at the end.
At the church, yeah.
Yeah, but I felt like that was too long. I felt like that
was... It did feel like it was too long there. I felt like they extended it
It felt like it was like a 5-6 minutes of that.
It wasn't quite that long, but it looked like it was forced into being longer. I think they were just trying to fit all the characters in doing something.
Right.
And they had a lot of characters.
There
Instead
was.
of what? There was 6 at the
there
table in the original.
Right, and they were all like I said in the original film, everything's enclosed. It was all focused on this house, and here it's focused on
Few different
everywhere.
areas. Yeah, there's
and then it all comes together into one spot. At the and there's just so many characters happening. There's the acts. There's what's going on in the app. It's just a lot.
I felt like that kind of took away from it for me.
That part there.
Because there was so much going on. Like, they were trying to evolve the story and develop the story further for each of the characters that were still there. Like, did we really need to know, that Lydia is a successful, that Delia is a successful artist in wherever she was, New York or whatever, and see her her exhibit that she had going on at the museum and talking about it in depth to the level that it wasn't super in depth, but it was enough that they were just really, really trying to develop the characters. So there was that, and then...
Well, how did you feel about how much detail they went into Lydia's, TV show? Did you think that was too much?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, each of the characters, they went into stuff, like, showing what's happened since then. Which, in one way, was kind of good. Like, it's kind of interesting, but also, like... If there was one story, like, or one or two more
they could have
more in depth.
So they could have eased it up, maybe shrink it down a little bit.
Yeah,
because they did that. They did that with some of the characters that are no longer. They did not come back for this film. They just quick of a page, turn, move on.
Yeah, they gave a brief explanation of what was going on and moved on.
They
and
could
they
have
could
done
have
something similar to that. Not saying that quick. But it could have been a lot shorter on some of these, and I think that would have helped process the film a little faster.
Yeah, I think it was more surface level instead of going deeper, like it could have been.
I felt like the time they spent on the whole thing going on the Afterlife, you can call it Beetlejuice's world, whatever you want to call it.
Afterlife.
I feel like that was a little bit too long, in some aspects.
Yeah,
there were so many different departments, so many different areas. Like, it felt like it could have been...
They were really trying to go with a lot of the aesthetics on it.
Well, they were that and just expanding everything.
Do you know what I found really interesting, now that we're talking about this? The fact that that CGI and all the special effects have gone so much further than they were in 1988. But looking at the movie, it's not much different than the 1988 one.
Now, did you get a feel that they used some stop motion in that film? Because I was trying to watch, you obviously know sandworms were going to be in this film.
Yeah.
It felt like they were doing the stop motion, but I can't tell if that was the actual CGI or if they actually did do some of it. I want to say they did do some CGI, but they used the effect like the stop motion.
Maybe. I don't know, but regardless, they were trying to make it consistent with what it was in 1988. I really think they could have utilized it to really bring it out, like make it pop more, just in general. Like, I think CGI has gone so far
and I think
since then.
Well, yeah. So if you think about movies, let's look at the movies back in those late 80s. You got Beetlejuice. Let's throw in Ghostbusters. They're in the same comedy horror type films.
Horror?
Well, if you look at what kind of films, okay, well, they're comedy films. And a little bit of a dark scenario to it.
They had comparable yeah.
So if you look at those films, and why did they become so popular? If you look at how, then there was green screen. There was not much CGI. They used actually puppets and some, green screening, and it worked. But if it's advanced so much, it's been used so many times, it's hard to come up with something new.
It is, but I mean, that didn't stop things
No.
like the Avengers. Like
The Avengers is an entirely different thing.
well, I know it is,
It's-
but I'm just saying, like,
It's
like
it's,
they were. It was like they were trying to duplicate it and create continuity too much. I would have liked to have seen some evolution, like some more show of what. Like, it could have looked really cool. Like, it still was fine, but it wasn't...
well, that's what I thought.
Wow.
Like, they could have still stuck with the stop motion for some of the things happening. They kind of did that with that, when they were talking about, Jeffrey's, his character being Charles, what happened to him,
yeah.
and that claymation kind of effect. You can obviously, that was a claymation CGI that was just done with computer graphics. But when you look at that, you look at the sandworms, there really wasn't too much of anything else.
Mm-mm.
And if you look at the 88 film, and you were watching it earlier, like I was seeing like the teeth chattering on the bottom, or, like people's heads being shrunk, and you don't see much of those kind of respect in this film.
One of the things that they showed, like the head shrinking, or the social worker who ended up winning a
I think it's her.
Yeah, Jane
Butterfield,
played by Annie McEnroe. If that's correct, she ended up actually winning a best supporting actress. If I have the right character.
As the clerk.
As the social worker is what her official title was.
No, her role was
but
really good.
like they used, like they faded her in and out kind of thing, and like I don't even think they did that.
No.
In this.
No, you didn't even, because I remember at the end of the film of the original Beetlejuice, you saw the football players in the back of the stairs.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, because
faded.
they were ghosts.
Yep. You didn't see that kind of thing. You didn't see. That was what
there actually was.
Was there one?
It wasn't. They weren't dancing, but when a bunch of the Bob-like characters, the shrunken head characters, did come down the stairs at one point. But it wasn't quite the same. It was just them running down. It wasn't
but
like
that's physical bodies. I'm talking about like
see-through. Yeah.
That wasn't there, and that's what the thing was. Is that you didn't see some of those effects. You didn't see it's just some of the flavor in the original Beetlejuice isn't here in the sequel. Now, is this still a good sequel? Yeah, it's still a good sequel. It's still fun. It was still fun to watch. Would I watch it again? I would.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, I would.
Yeah, it was good. It was. Like, I'm saying a lot of negative things just because I'm... it's hard not to compare it to the first. It's a sequel, so...
Well, we know. The first one is still good. The sequel isn't as good as the first one, but it is still fun to watch.
It is.
There's just some things that I think could have been better.
Mm-hmm. But they certainly touched on the nostalgia, especially for, people that are, born and raised in the 70s, 80s, 90s that watched the movie back then.
Now, I think a new generation would appreciate this film more, I think, with this one, because it resonates with them a little bit more.
You think?
I think a little bit more. It's a new flavor. It's like, they never really experienced this type of film as much. I can't think of as many type of films, especially if they like Wednesday, they'll probably like this one.
Well, that's because of Jenna Ortega.
Exactly. You got her in there. The people,
which
I think
she was a good actress. I think she was a good choice.
She was. I think that was great that they brought her in here.
Yeah, I just love the continuity that they had between.
And she had a good enough, really good enough, a lot of spotlight on her. There was a lot going on with her, and they did Lydia quite a bit, and then even the mother-in-law, Lydia's mother-in-law had quite a bit of a spotlight as well, which I was a little surprised.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess in the last one, the majority of everything was on Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis as primarily, and then not as much, but still an important part was the Charles and Delia. And then, of
Correct.
course, Lydia, like, of
Right.
course. So I guess they were making the other fewer parts bigger.
They were. And I think it's just because of what was going on with
Even
the family.
Beetlejuice was bigger. Interesting. I didn't put that connection
No,
together
and I
during
felt like
watching it.
It felt like a lot of people needed Beetlejuice in that film, which was didn't expect that.
Exactly.
But I mean, I think
I think in some ways it seemed like Beetlejuice had grown a little bit and he was a little more subdued, more mature, but he still had his.
He still had
ridiculous.
his sarcasm, his little style was still there, but it did felt a little different of how they portrayed him because in the first film Beetlejuice felt like more of a, I don't care, I'm gonna get what I want. This one was like that, but I think he was being more. It seemed more friendly, but also he was also watching out for his wife who's out to get him too. So I think he's kind of looking out for his own back.
And he's really romantic.
Yeah.
Don't forget the creepy romantic.
How can I laugh at that?
But, in any event, I would see the movie again. I would even see it in theaters. But I don't think it's as good as the first one. After having talked about it a little bit, is there anything else you want to talk about, or do we want to go ahead and give our final?
Let's get. I think we got. I think I'm going to wrap it up with a score.
Yeah. Do you want to say where you land as well?
Let's go 4.25.
I can go with 4.25 because there were some points that you brought up that I hadn't considered, and some additional deeper layers that probably restricted the movie to a certain degree. But I still gotta say I was disappointed about what they didn't do with the effects, but some of those songs were really funny.
I I think the first half was probably what sold me on how things were going with it. I think they could have cleaned up the second half more, and if they did that, I'd give it a higher score. But it's
fair. So 4.25. That's solid.
Yeah, it's still good to watch. So if you like the original Beetlejuice, go out and watch this one.
Yeah, in the theater, it's worth it.
Yep, it'll be in theaters on coming around the corner. It's September 6th, 2024. So
yeah, real close. So thank you so much for joining us this evening, and you have a great day.
Just be aware, do not say Beetlejuice 3 times.
What?
Beetlejuice.
What?
Beetlejuice.
What?
Beetlejuice. Oh.
Ah!